Hello YouTube audience, today is November the 15th, 2020 and I would like to work on this Japanese maple Fireglow, and it has red foliage, and it just you can see some red foliage still, and just finished dropping the leaves. I think I'm going to do the first pruning for the tree. I got this from the Swanson's nursery last year, and I never got the chance to work on it. This is late fall. It's probably the last chance to work on a maple, and probably one of the best chance to work on maples at the time, because it would bleed less when you prune it compared to a active growing season. So I normally take the tag and kind of do an image so that I get all the information from the tag. It is the cultivar name is Fireglow, and it has deep red translucent foliage in spring, darker in summer, and semi-dwarf habit upright tree form. So this is basically what we see right now. This summer I attempt to air layer the top of the tree, but it fell because I probably put the tree in too much sun and did not give it enough water. Japanese maple, a lot of professional growers say some species would do better in semi-shade, not full sun, but you could put them in full sun, just would need to be very careful on watering. If it's in the summer, sometimes you may need to water it several times a day to keep it from burning by the leaves. So especially when we have an air layer, so the ability for the air layer to take up water is impaired, because part of the so ideally you only scrape away the cambium layer, which is the layer the leaves give back energy to the stem and the root system. But normally you cannot only scrape off cambium, you scrape off part of the sapwood too, which is where the water transport to the leaves. So when we do an air layer, and we probably need to be very careful not to get the leaves burned, because the water transportation ability of the air layer part is impaired. And but I didn't know that, so I probably put the maple in too much sun, which was not a lot of sun, because I have a balcony that's facing north, so only maybe several hours a day in full sun. So the top of the top part, which I tried to air layer, was completely burned, and so the air layer didn't succeed. So I remove it, but it's fine. We still have the majority of the tree. Now I got to try to do the first pruning of the year, and also the last pruning of the year. to try to set some of the initial structure. This is how the tree look like without any styling, any pruning, and just raw from the nursery stock. So I'm going to give it a spin, just to document what it looks like in 360 degree, and then before I start work on it, although at this season, which is right after leaf drop, the maple tend to bleed less. It still bleed sometime. I probably should do this earlier, right after it start to drop leaves, not after it finish dropping leaves. Although it drop all its leaves in 2 to 3 weeks, which is the correct window, but it may be a little bit late to do major pruning. So we can observe some dieback on the tree, like here where it was pruned, it has a long dieback to the next viable branch. So we do need to leave a little bit of space for the tree to potentially die back to. So the first thing I would like to do is to set the height of the tree to where I want it to be. So I think this is the front I choose for the tree, and we can adjust it later. And it has some very gentle movement. Here we don't have much movement, but we have some gentle bend here and still some gentle movement. But after this, it's all straight. So I'm going to cut the tree from here. This is a relatively big cut. But it is a trunk chop to kind of set the initial height of the tree. We probably would not take, because this part is completely straight, and we probably don't need that. That's why I did an air layer above that too, because it's not very interesting part there. Another time to do trunk chop is when the tree is in the very positive, energy positive state, maybe early summer. But since this is a very young tree and the branch is not very big yet, I think I can do this at this time. I just need to make sure I leave enough space for it to die back to. Leave plenty of space for it to die back to. This is a major trunk chop. Another good way of doing it is to use a saw. But I think I can get away from it by just using a concave cutter. Just repeatedly try to cut it. It's not the easiest thing in the world, but it is a major step towards this trunk chop. Is probably the most important step towards making a bonsai out of the nursery stock, so I can be pretty patient for it. I'm almost there. Okay. At that moment, I get rid of the top of the tree and leaving plenty of room for it to die back to, and hopefully it's going to die back to where I want it to, just with 1 centimeter to die back. So that would set the new leader to be maybe this one. I would like this one to be the leader of the tree. Which makes, so this would be a side branch, which is appropriate. But problem is this branch is the angle where this branch come out from is too close to the leader. So I'm going to get rid of this major branch. I'm going to use a concave cutter for this branch. Okay, the major chop. would hope we have something that come out near that chop. And then here we have a back branch. I hope you may be able to see it. We have a back branch here, which could replace that branch. But ideally, we would hope a branch come out from here to replace that large branch. It's a good place to have branch, but the branch just come out in a wrong direction. Ideally, we would like a branch that maybe come out a little bit more horizontal, not entirely horizontal, but a little bit more horizontal instead of doing it like this. Okay, the leader, we can let it grow to create taper. And this side branch is fine. We can bring it down a little bit. So there is that branch here, which obviously I'm going to get rid of. So on the trunk, each place we will have one branch come out. So at this place we have these tiny branchlets coming out, which we don't really want. I don't really want. Because it is coming out from the same direction of this major branch. Normally, people would leave these tiny branches but get rid of the big branches. But the problem is these branches are growing almost directly under this branch, which is a very nice branch. So I don't want this to compete with these tiny branches. So I think I'm going to get rid of these tiny ones. Rid of all of it. Okay. I think this one we can still wire it a little bit or use a guide wire on. Okay. So the branch structure is largely simplified. This is not really the season for wiring, so I'm probably not going to wire it. I'm simply going to shorten some of the branches. I think this one is doing better with the bleeding. It's not bleeding, so far so good. So for the rest of the work, I'm just going to shorten some of the branches. Here, shorten to the first note. So that it's going to start bifurcating. Here, I'm going to shorten it to the first note. Basically, I'm going to cut it back to a stump, which is quite normal for deciduous tree. If we're doing it, looking at it from the front view, there is still a little bit I can do. There is that stump here. Maybe it's time to remove, and also a branchlet that's coming out to the wrong direction, coming back to the trunk, which we really don't need. I'm going to get rid of both of them. Okay. All right. This back branch is still quite flexible. So I'm going to take a piece of used wire to try to wire it into a good direction. You can probably zoom in into that little branch that I'm trying to wire. We can use the two branch principle here just to anchor it on a branch. Just loosely. I'm just wiring it very, very loosely, not tight at all. What I want to do from the front view is to try to make a little bit more use of this branch. Although it's a back branch, but I want it to be more visible from the front. I think this would be good. The top, we can do it like this to bring this down a little bit. From the top view, this internode is very long. I'm not sure there is any bud that can come out from here. One thing I can do is I could completely cut this off and see if there would be smaller branchlet come out. I think I would do that. Just cut it here and see if next year I will get something that come out, and just leaving the leading branch. Okay, there is one more small change to do, which is there is a stump here which is ready for removal. I'm just going to remove that. Then it will be ready for good rest in the winter. I can completely remove it. The dye bag is finished. Okay, that would do. And although it's not bleeding at all, I think I'm going to seal it a little bit. So I'm going to use a sealant to seal it. A lot of the big wound I made. Sometimes deciduous work could look so underwhelming because when it's finished, a lot of time it's left with a stump with no branches, and it just looked pathetic. But that's just the first step, and my hope is over the long run it's going to be better and better. I'm sealing all these larger root wounds in hope that it's not going to create too much dieback. A lot of people don't seal the wound. It's also okay. I'm just being maybe overly cautious. Just sealing the larger wounds, and also there is one on the top. I'm going to seal the top too, in case it starts bleeding, which I'm not observing right now. So each tree, each variety is a little bit different. Yesterday I worked on a Japanese maple Ukigumu, it was bleeding like crazy. Although it's a season that it bleed less, but it still bleed like crazy. Which lead me to think that every maple may be slightly different. Although in general, this is the right season to prune. And also yesterday it was raining a lot. Maybe there were more water in the system of the tree, so it may bleed more. Several more places I want to seal. Okay. I think all the wounds I created today is sealed. Sometimes I may apply too much sealant, which may not be necessary. But I have plenty of sealant. Just use this tree wound seal. Hopefully it's going to work. So I think I'm going to do a 360 of the tree again. It may look pathetic at this point, but I think it's going to get better and better over time. The deciduous work is not really about the immediate effect. It's about maybe 20, 30 years later, it would become a great tree. Oops, it's a little bit outside the range. Okay. Just going to do one more 360 because I didn't see that the plant get a little bit outside the camera range. Okay, I think we're back to the front. Okay, we're back to the front view of the tree. And next year, I may repot it, or I may leave it in the pot to grow for one more year. depends on how the tree respond and survive, and whether I have a good pot for it, because the local bonsai supplier, Bonsai Northwest, is now closed, and the new owner is going to take it up and open it somewhere else. I'm still not sure when it's going to be opened again, so don't know if I would have a good pot for this tree, but it is a good choice for a early development tree to stay in a relatively large pot like this one for it to thicken. We see a little bit of taper right now. From the base, it is also worth mentioning this is a graft tree. So it's the Fireglow is grafted to a maple. The union is here. So this is one tree, and this is from another tree, which is the root stock. Probably make the tree a little bit stronger, but it's not really the ideal thing for bonsai, because over time the two trees may have different growth rate and the union may have a discontinuity. That's why I try to air layer and get a pure tree earlier, but it was not successful. Later in its development, I still have many chances to get cuttings, because you routinely pruned Japanese maple to get a good bonsai. So I still have a lot of chance to do cuttings, to maybe prune off a branch and stuck it into soil and see if I can get a pure Fireglow Japanese maple instead of a grafted tree, which in the long run may create discontinuity in the thickness of the trunk. So the major concern is this part, which is the rootstock, is going to thicken much faster than the science, which is the Fireglow maple. But at this point, it looks pretty good. It looks still pretty good. It has all these gentle movements on the tree, which is pretty desired in Japanese maple. And as the leader develops, it's going to have some taper too. So this is the first styling, first pruning of this Japanese maple, and it is not bleeding. I still haven't seen any bleed that come out of the tree, so it may be the correct time for this tree to be worked on. But not every tree may behave differently. So I've documented the look of this tree before any work was done, and the process of the first styling of this tree, and we can see how it developed in the future. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time. Bye.